It's a Bitcoin Christmas, and we have so much to discuss. Well, welcome back to Crown's Crypto Cave. It is a lovely Saturday over here from Helsinki, Finland. Nice and cold AF once again, but there's plenty to talk about as Bitcoin once again making new all-time highs since we last spoke, even since the last time since we last spoke as well. In between those times that we spoke, it's just new all-time highs all the way fucking around, green dildos flying around, and everyone's fucking shish kebabbed, especially bears right now. So with that in mind, we have, we have the Crown Chain application, which is right here in front of our very faces, and... That is a great thumbnail right there. By the way, that is a stream summary. If you do want some of the stream information in Word format, that is available to you through the app nowadays, of which there is plenty more coming in the not so distant future, which I still have to kind of hold my tongue against with announcing essentially, but understand that there is a lot of value being added behind the scenes right now, and soon enough it'll be unveiled. With that said, you can claim your own free account at app.crownchain.net. The link's in the description below, or you can just type it in your browser right there. And with that said, let's now focus on some of the data over here on the dashboard. Bitcoin dominance hovering around that 60.5% region, which we haven't really seen it change all that much in the last couple of days, except just essentially hold a range. Sorry, I'm operating off of not so optimal night of sleep, but it's okay. More importantly, with that, we do see Ethereum and the rest of the altcoin party kind of joining alongside, but Bitcoin being the first mover does really solidify its stance as the leader within this next segment within the market cycle. So we are seeing still a rotational market, but Bitcoin still the head of that in comparison to any other things. So with that in mind, what else do we see around here? We see fear and greed index actually coming down a couple points from yesterday to today. I suppose Bitcoin didn't rally enough for it to stay up there. I think that this should be renamed to optimism, pessimism, really. But realistically with that, keep in mind that is being in some ways judged off of, very maybe not so idealistic measurements like, Twitter posts, for example. It's kind of scraping similar data to that. So while that did come down, even though Bitcoin did rally up another $3,000 since we last spoke, I would still say that is more or less within the greedy zone and does set off a few warning signals. But at the end of the day, it needs to be combined with several other things. And as you've seen for like the past few months, if you were to just blindly short into that would be a career-ending move, we might say. On top of that, we do see that open interest is still hovering around the $9 billion marker. We didn't really see too much added from yesterday to today, about 150 cumulative. As I believe last time we spoke, it was about 8.8 billion, that is. But I do want to see how this is actually going to look like in chart formation. So into the market data tab we go, and we can see that it's flattened out a little bit right here. As price action does flatten out, well, not necessarily flatten out, but expands the upside. More importantly, within the context of this being a weekend, I do think that this could be a potential time for a bit of a short-term pullback, especially looking at the funding rate, which actually has come down significantly here. In fact, massively cratering right there. Holy shit. Now the global funding rate is 0.05. It's some odd percent right there. But if we go and zoom in on the minutia, we only see two exchanges above the threshold. One of them is a completely irrelevant exchange, that being BaseFX. Binance being the other one, a very big one, and very important actually, one of the biggest ones in cryptocurrency land, and that would be 0.127%. But everyone else well below that threshold, and that is kind of what we were looking for over the last few days, to kind of come back down, play within the context of the current price action, and then more importantly, reset a little bit there. So what I would imagine that we're going to be looking at over the next, probably 36 hours, especially during this weekend, potentially a little bit of a pullback territory. But of course, with the way that things close on Friday, that's going to set in biases for the greater trend, the greater time frames, and the next week to come, essentially. So with that in mind, what else do we see? What else do we see actually over here? Yeah, futures premium over spot price action continues to increase now at an astronomical rate. Don't think that we've even seen it this high, which is pretty impressive. So fair enough on that. Market once again pricing in a further upside move, of course. And other than that, I think it's going to be best to actually go into the charts themselves, as I do check in on all of the running headlines right here. Nice one. Just perusing this for a second. But let's go into the actual price action chart. Starting off with the most important thing that happened yesterday. That would be Friday closure for CME, which of course does typically influence what we see on spot price action, which is going to be closing on Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But more importantly, with CME closing well above the top central order band, that does set into the buys for the next week to come of new all-time highs, meaning that I'm still more or less bullish on the whole. Now, with that in mind, over the weekend, of course, CME is not trading. And so over the weekend, we typically do, you've probably seen this plenty of times if you've just been in this market for like even the last 6 months now, where over the weekend, we do see a counter trend move to the week's direction. In this case, that would be to the downside over the weekend, contrary to the week's upside direction. And it's usually going to be an opportunity for the most part. Now, don't get me wrong. This chart is absolutely ridiculous looking. It is, I mean, this is your real chart right here. By the way, this is linear scale. Like this is extremes, of course, but in extreme environments, I've learned that it's very unwise to try to call the top before that goes in. So I do want to spend a little bit of time here kind of explaining that, as while I am going to be showing, upside, I guess, targets, to use a bad fucking word right there, the T word, we'll say, it doesn't necessarily mean that I certainly wouldn't be looking for taking shorts on those levels. For myself, I don't really even consider taking shorts on this asset until we get a weekly reversal, meaning lower lows and lower highs on that continuational lower low, typically speaking, which is well at some point that will come. But at this point, that mean that Bitcoin has to come back down below about $3,300 for reference. So in the meantime, do I think that Bitcoin has more upside? Yes, I do. If you've checked out my long-term analysis video, forky time, it's forky time, bros, and also braets, and what else? What other non-denominational and non-offensive words do we have for people, our viewers, or any other? We can't even say people anymore. Furries. Yes, that's what we're looking for. But what I'm trying to get at right now is, or as I lose my train of thought, is that yes, the buys for the next week to come is going to be with new all-time highs. However, over the weekend, a little bit of a pullback certainly would not be out of the question here. And I would still be looking at the same sort of relevant regions that we were speaking about from the end of this past week, which we'll get into soon enough on the lower term timeframes on spot price action. But first things first, we need to continue to peruse our way through this one, as we do see continuation signals on the DMI ADX. So momentum still increasing here. You can kind of get a more generalized long-term view on this one, seeing its kind of posturing in the more long-term look on this one. And I just want to compare this to spot price action as well. Okay, yeah, so we do have very similar behavior here. Anyways, my point is that looking at the DMI plus, you can see that it's right around the 47 marker. That's really not anything too crazy from a long-term perspective. What gets crazy in long-term perspective is actually really like above the 80 marker right here. To put that in perspective, we can go back in time, and actually no, it'd be more like 60 for spot price action. We do see a few reads towards 80, which was in the 2013 and 2014 major, massive, humongously impressive rallies right here and right here before leading towards about 70 to 80% drop downs. Let's actually measure this one out. 83, 84% right there, and we got about an 88.25% right there. So yes, I would say that is certainly extreme, of course, but you can kind of get an idea of where we're at within the greater cycle by looking at the strength of this right here, which is currently sitting at right around a 42.78 on spot price action, and on CME we do see that that's right around about a 46. So while it is aggressive, absolutely, just based off that, and also of course the long-term analysis video that I did upload last week in the long-term analysis playlist, or actually no, I re-uploaded like a more streamlined version of it on Wednesday, I think it was, or Thursday, whatever it was, this past week. We did kind of go over the case for some pretty crazy numbers. A little bit of clickbait in there, of course, but is relevant. And if I am going to put together a case for these more extreme numbers, which in my opinion would be the 100,000 plus, 200,000 plus, that sort of shit, there are several things that do suggest that that's not as crazy as it might sound at the outset. On top of that, we do see that MACD histogram continues to increase on the closure. Good. So that is also indicating continuation here. And if we go down to, did we close a 2-day or 3-day yesterday? I don't believe we did. Okay, 23rd is when. I think that's Tuesday, not Monday. Yeah, so it'll be closing on Monday's closure, leading into Tuesday. So we won't get that. So we still won't get that fresh even on Sunday. So fair enough. In that case, we have to go over here to spot price action. And we actually did see a 2-day delta closure last night at 7 p.m. Eastern time, and once again closing above the top side of Toronto band. So now you've kind of see this happen, multiple successive closures in a row. Starting with this one over here after a little bit of a sideways consolidation. So this is consolidation, trend, and this again puts into the bias that I'd be looking for further trend expansion. And in this case, seeing as the trend is the upside, that would imply further upside. Did we close a 3-day last night as well? No, we closed it tonight actually. So this would be the next most important thing that's potentially happening the soonest. Now I do look at this as more or less formality based off of the weekly closure for CME and also with the 2-day closed for spot price action, because I actually do think that the 2-day works a little bit better than the 3-day in spot price action. But looking at this right here, any sort of a closure above the top side, which would be 54,200 that is, again, would be more or less posturing for more upside here. Same sort of interactions that we do see on MACD histogram, still increasing here. Almost even, it would be very interesting to see if it actually makes a higher high above this January 20th, this early January high right here as well. That'd be very, very good for the long term, suggesting that we have even more on top of this as far as momentum goes. And same thing on 3-day DMI ADX, still looking good there for the short term. Positive slopes on both the DMI plus as it is dominant and the ADX right there as well. So all of that is very, 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 very good and does imply further new all-time highs coming in this next week. So where would those targets be? Same sort of shit as what we've been speaking about for like the last few weeks here. The 2-spot 618 right around $58,000. I do still like that area for a little bit of a medium-term pullback. But over the weekend here, as we are caught in a bit of a range, well, I wouldn't necessarily say that we're caught in a range just yet, but what I would be looking at is a range to occur between the 414 and the 272 right here. That's about 54,300 to the downside and 55,800 to the upside, pretty much around where Bitcoin's closing highs are on the lower term timeframes as it is right now. So, would that be your weekend pullback, your traditional weekend pullback? Perhaps yes. Keep in mind, CMEs did close the week at 55,500-ish region. So I wouldn't be surprised to see if Bitcoin spot kind of hangs around there over the weekend around closure on Sunday when CMEs open back up again. That is typically what we do see. That's what we see. That's what we saw last week. And that would, again, be more or less good. I mean, you saw the same shit. I think it was like right around here. No, it was the 14th to the 15th. Yeah, so it must have been like, right around here. Why is this? Hold on. Yes. Okay. Yes. So it was back around here. Okay. Excellent. Anyways, with that said, I mean, you can even see on CME right here, it's like just freshly breaking out on the 4-hour too. Looking at 4-hour MACD, having to cross the upside. Now this cross, here's the thing. This is actually picture perfect. You do see a bullish cross on this as it closes and expands above, continuation of trends. So you have multiple things confluent with each other. Yes, new all-time highs very, 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 very likely coming into this next week of price action. ADX, DMI, same shit. So I do like all of this combined with each other. And while over the weekend, I wouldn't necessarily hold my breath for this, I do believe that over this next week, probably even 2 weeks, we do see new all-time highs printed with that $58,000 target in mind, and potentially higher than that as we work our way through it. But in the short-term time frame, so if we go to our regular charts over here, let me just make sure that I'm recording, that the microphone's working, and let's get that going over there. Do you want some more Valheim music, by the way? It's really good. People think it was like Elsa playing a flute, and it wasn't. She's looking at me weird right now. Do you like to play the flute? Yeah, that's right, the skin flute. Anyways, looking at this right here, we do see that bi-hourly turning down a little bit, but hasn't even put in a local high as it stands right now. We even see that bi-hourly Stokes will turn to the downside below 54,828. So probably not relevant for this next closure in 12 minutes or so, but again, kind of showing a little bit of, well, I was going to say a little bit of lack of momentum here, but I mean, I'm looking across the board and it's like, it's not even looking all that bad, to be honest with you. The reason why I'm going off these numbers right here is mostly because of these fibs. And so playing out a little bit of a pullback over the weekend to kind of bring things into parity with where CME's closed on Friday would make the most sense to me. But the mark does need to make sense to me in order for it to work. So there you go. Anyways, what I can say right here is that I would essentially be looking at this for a range over the weekend. I wouldn't be standing too harshly by this, except for the 272 right here, which is right around $54,000. So $54,000 is a little bit of a basing zone on the shorter term time frames. I'm talking about like the 4-hour and 2-hour, meaning that as long as Bitcoin kind of plays out a range between these two regions right here, more or less more or less long-term bullish, more or less also short-term bullish, more or less just reaccumulation on this expansive phase. Now, with that in mind, that would imply that a lower-term time frame closure below the $54,000 pivot likely does have Bitcoin come back down and test around the $51,000 pivot that Bitcoin was kind of basing off of on Thursday and Friday. With that in mind, again, this is becoming like really minute, and you've seen these points of failure slowly move up over time as Bitcoin, well, essentially just kind of grind its way up. And that's why when we look at these regions right here, I would have to once again just move it up. I would be looking at $51,000, or sorry, I would be looking at $54,000 as relevant for the short-term timeframes, meaning that if Bitcoin does close a 2-hour or 4-hour dildo below there, I would be looking for extension probably back down to about $51,000 base, anywhere around here between in about a $500 range between 51 even and 51,500-ish region. That's relevant only for the short-term time frames. If that area does break on a 2-hour or 4-hour dildo closure, that's at the point where I look for another about $3,000 move to the downside. Judge that as you will as a short-term or medium-term time frame move, but I would still not say that that's relevant for the higher-term time frames. I really don't switch around my higher-term time frame bias, meaning daily plus, until Bitcoin takes out our this area down here at about 44,300, which I believe is our last daily higher low. Yes, indeed it is. Actually, more like $45,000. So yes, we could say that, meaning that if Bitcoin does come back down below there, close a daily dildo below there, more importantly, or even a 4-hour dildo below there, although I would use the 44,300 pivot to be specific, I would be looking for a much greater move to the downside. We're talking about like a $5,000 to $6,000 move to the downside now from that signal given to next targeted region, which would be about $39,000 or maybe even $40,000. Very likely a bounce implied there, and then I'd want to see it in real time. Now, am I looking for any of that to happen? No, but again, it is very important to kind of prepare conditions for what would denote that trading plans have gone awry, have gone completely wrong. But as it stands right now, I mean, there's really nothing bearish about this chart on medium and higher term timeframes. Shorter term timeframes, I'd even say that it's still bullish as well if it was a regular trading week. But seeing as it is the weekend, this typically is a really good time for the market to kind of whip a few people out and get ready for continuation on the overall week's direction. Now, with that in mind, how would I judge or what would be relevant into looking for Bitcoin to take that next leg up to about $58,000? Or is that even need to take this down? Okay, this should be more like right around there. Hey, you're out in the middle of fucking nowhere, man. And then we want $62,000 right here. So in this case, there's really not a good way of doing this, unfortunately, especially over the weekend. You could look at the last highs continuation point. I don't think that would work in this case, to be honest with you. There's just too much tuna within this one right now. So with that in mind, I do want to check out once again our lower term time frame momentum oscillators and just judge, is this even relevant for today? I suppose yes, it is. I mean, we do still see momentum to the upside as long as Bitcoin's closing 4 hours above 54,700. Also on 4-hour RSI, what do we see? I mean, it's still constructive here, but this is still a bullish RSI. Certainly wouldn't mind a move back down to test around the exponential, but how far does price action get on that? I mean, maybe it tests the bottom side of the 272, which would be that 54,000 target. So we're not even, we're talking about kind of like small chunks right there. And this doesn't really fit in with the narrative of the current HVP posturing, which is in the single digits right now, meaning that if we do see expansion from this region, I mean, we should be looking for a similar movement to the last time that we saw expansion from, a single digit region, which for reference was this guy right here, precipitating this whole move from about $38,000 and redlining at about $48,000. We're talking about a $10,000 move right there. So from this current posture, I mean that could put Bitcoin in the $6,000 region, I guess. It does have the power to do that. Again, another example right here. We do see that it gets down to about a single digit read once again, expands out of this base, and that is quite the move. From top to bottom, about a 20% move. Actually, it doesn't look like much on this chart because I am on. Actually, I'm not on log scale, but I think it's still doesn't look as impressive as it should. 20% move right there from top to bottom, about a $6,000 move. So with that in mind, I'm actually curious what this one produced over here. Is this another 20%? Actually, 26%. Very interesting. Let's go see what this one over here produced. So another single digit read leading to this breakout. Let's see what that one's looking like. 22, almost 23% right there. So not bad at all. Very much not bad. Now, of course, in this case, does that mean that expansion on volatility has to come with more upside? No, it doesn't. but that also mean that if it comes to the downside, I mean, we're probably going to come all the way back down towards like $45,000 base. So I guess it could happen. Yes. Am I looking for that to happen once again? No, not really. Just have to overlay conditions for that. So again, in order of of magnitude, starting from least to greatest, it's going to be 51,000 bucks, or well, 54,000 bucks, then 51,000 bucks, 48, and then 40. Then I'd say like 45 for the higher term timeframes. So one by one, but as long as those are not met, I just basically remain bullish on all timeframes, I guess. Kind of crazy right now, man. Kind of crazy. Let's look at 3 hour right here. Or sorry, should also call out that 4 hour, sorry, it wasn't on spot price action, but on CME. Remember on CME, and again, this is why I love the CME chart, just so much more obvious, plays out the hidden bullish divergence from this coming into the next all-time high. It's what we were looking at yesterday, confirmed right after the morning video on expansive volatility. I mean, this chart is a lot more conclusive than what we see on spot price action. So again, CME does not trade over the weekend, so this is not really relevant for today, coming into late Sunday when it opens back up, and especially Monday. This would very likely imply continuation here. Hidden bullish divergence on expansive volatility, on new highs, trend continuation at the same time, plus pattern. I mean, there's several, and also momentum here as well. I mean, there's several things confluent. So yes, I would be looking for probably 58,000 bucks to get tagged next week. Maybe even a potential to tag 62,000 bucks. That's the next sort of target on my algo menu. If we go back on over here or actually maybe it's on this chart. Yeah, there we go. So we got 58,000 bucks at the 2.618. That's a really big algo target right there. And then we got 62,000 bucks right here. Not as big of an algo target, but typically does get play at least for a short-term pullback. Can sometimes lead into a medium-term pullback. And we can talk about further target C upside, of which, well, you can see that there's several in the mid $60,000 region. So take that as you will. Things, I guess, still look more or less fine here. Medium-term timeframes really telling the story, as well as we did see that hidden bullish evidence start to really play out that we called out. I mean, this was like a week, well, maybe not a week ago, but 5 days ago on February 15th, we did confirm 1, 2, 3 jobs of hidden bullish evidence. So that was also a big one, probably the biggest one for spot price action, really suggesting that this was going to move to the upside. Well, everyone was looking to the downside, 40,000 bucks. No, of course, I really fucking hate that terminology. Not everyone always says, but people typically say, everyone was doing this, but I was doing this. It's like, fuck you. Not everyone was doing that, because you don't know what everyone was doing in a fucking world market, and you might not be as special as what you think. Little snowflake trader fuck. Just kidding. Although, I mean, there certainly is a degree of that, especially in like crypto Twitter and like social media venues like Reddit and YouTube as well. Sometimes I'm guilty of it for sure, but I hope that people are comfortable enough to call me out when I do something like that, because I absolutely fucking hate it. I really don't want to be that person. Anyways, looking at 12 hour right here, what do I say about that 12 hour RSI? It's still constructive. It's still bullish. We did get the move all the way to the edge of the bullish control zone, as we said, was likely based off of this signature right here. But I'd be looking for the next pullback from that, likely test around the exponential, and then try another move to the upside, especially alongside momentum, which is clearly pointed further north, as long as we're closing above 53,300. I mean, this all looks good. This all looks really good for a continuation here. Again, is this chart ridiculous? Is this chart a ridiculous chart? Yeah, it's ridiculous as fuck, actually. But let me show you something. All of these charts are ridiculous here. All of these charts. Craig is going to love this shit. All right, so let's go all the way back to the Genesis, right? BLX index. Let's go all the way back to 2010, right? So this looks like a massive move. But hey, this is on linear scale, so it's actually really, well, I mean, Bitcoin's trading at about 9 cents, and it rallied all the way up from what, like 6 cents. I mean, that is kind of a big move, actually. But let's just kind of scroll time, right? Okay, so this is 9 cents for reference, right? I'll just let the charts speak for themselves. Let's mark this one off right here, 50 cents. High of $4. Jesus, that wasn't even high. Sorry. $32 high. And then, oh boy. Sorry, just for reference right there. And then our next high of $268. And then our next high of just below 1,200 bucks. Again, this is where we started from. That's 9 cents. Remember that first move that looked absolutely fucking astronomical. then bigger reversal before. Whoa! Massive! Ah! I mean, what the fuck? Just doesn't stop right there. And then we get 20,000 bucks right there. Again, we were here at one point, 9% or 9 cents. And then again, this is 20,000 bucks like 3 years ago or maybe 4 years ago, or working on 4 years ago. And then we get this right here. So you can kind of see that all of these are actually, you know, it looks ridiculous in time, absolutely. But this looked ridiculous in comparison to this. This looked ridiculous in comparison to this. This certainly looked ridiculous in comparison to this. And even that looked ridiculous in comparison to that. Or even the one before that right here. You know, this is $1 fucking. So my point is that, yes, things do look ridiculous, but they can always get more ridiculous. And at some point, yeah, Bitcoin's going to turn down and play out one of those very nasty downside moves. I'm not, you know, fully convinced that Bitcoin's just going to like go to 100,000 bucks or 200,000 bucks and just stay there for its eternity and everyone's going to be happy. Probably not. No, there's going to be some more trials and tribulations, but at least for the time being, I suppose it's not as ridiculous as one might first consider. Anyways, how did I get onto that tip right there? Again, if you want the more long-term analysis, check out the last video that I uploaded in the long-term analysis playlist. It's going to be 25 minutes of fucking Bitcoin Bula-ishness, documenting the next potential macro high and also following macro low. Anyways, okay, so we went through the 12-hour. We got momentum. Yeah, we got RSI. What about daily? Same shit. Daily looks even more strong, actually. 50,400, the magical number. Daily RSI, again, we spoke about this sort of triangular formation right here, making new highs on the 17th of February. That was precipitating this actual breakout. Just another, you know, derivative of kind of getting that move before it actually does happen. So, and look at this, the fucking daily jewel is like in a bullish posture. That is ridiculous. I don't look at that as a buy signal in any way, shape, or form, but it's not in a bearish posturing just yet. 2 days continuation and 3 day, of course, is more or less the same. So there you go. Even would I say that this 3 day hidden bullish divergence still playing out? No, I would not say so anymore, because this one's already tapped the edge of the bullish control zone. So anything on top of that is cherry on the cake. So again, you know, upside targets still relevant. 58,000 bucks to 62,000 bucks, kind of the next targeted region. I know these ranges are getting fucking massive now, but that is the the nature of the beast when we're dealing with these massive numbers in an extremely historic rally, of which historic in the sense of Bitcoin, you know, it's like it does one of these once every 3 years. It's quite impressive. But yeah, at the end of the day, things are looking more or less like continuation here. Weekly, again, expansive volatility coming off the lows. Yes, it is getting a little bit more hot here, but I really wouldn't be looking for a potential macro high until Bitcoin at the very least gets into the red zone, like above an 85, especially above 90. That's typically where tears start to ensue. We're talking about January 2018 when Bitcoin was at, of course, 20,000 bucks before ultimately cratering all the way down. We're talking about March, April, May. This was your coronavirus dump times. We're talking about this major high actually being put in right here too, before a pretty nasty about 40% pullback, I believe that it was on this one. So, you know, it still has some more space to go, especially on the macro. You can see that all macro highs were met by HVP being well into the 90s actually, on the weekly specifically. And if we backtest this on BLX, I'm curious to see if it's the same. Not enough data area really for this area right here, but everything else, yes, from 2013 and beyond, absolutely, 100%. So very, 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 very good history right there. And what do you know, as we do see weekly stokes once again cross the upside. This is a very, very, very aggressive trend line. And again, this will break at some point, don't get me wrong, but I mean, there's really not much more space for it to kind of wedge itself into it here. Jesus Christ, that is something. That is something. So I do think that we're going to see one of those nastier pullbacks somewhat soon, like on in like the next couple, maybe like 2 to 3 months. But are there new all-time highs implied before then? Very likely, yes. So going back to the short-term timeframes over here, I feel like what I said earlier was not all that helpful, but Again, we're kind of in uncharted territory right now, so I really want to even be making decisions based off this 55.8 pivot right here. It's a 54,000 pivot that I'll be making decisions off of, and essentially I'd be looking for a range over the weekend to kind of be created between where Bitcoin is right now in that $54,000 pivot. As long as that holds, I'm essentially just bullish in all time frames, looking for that to be reaccumulated and likely set up a move next week once CME's open towards 58,000 bucks. By the same token, if this does break to the downside, I would be looking for another move back down towards about $51,000 base, and we'll come back to it after that. But again, that's only if. So how deep into this video are we? 29 minutes. Let's go over and check out Mr. Buterin, or actually let's check out traditional markets, how they close out the week. So yeah, we did see a bit more reversals on NASDAQ. Did we hit our target to the upside? Pretty much, yes. I said 13,750 on Friday. We get up to 13,729. Yeah, close enough on that one. This one, though, looking a lot more like a reversal now after that rejection on Friday's closure. Do I think that it opens up on a bounce to start off next week? Probably yes. However, does that bounce get sold into? I mean, we do have a head and shoulders reversal in place here, and the targeted move on that would be all the way down towards a 4-hour 200 simple and 200 exponential moving average, which would be 13,300. Problem is that only becomes actionable on confirmation of the break below 13,550. So it's in place, yes. It is in place, yes. I mean, that's all I have to say about that. Weekly closed as actually as a bearish engulfing right there. Typically can be seen as a reversal formation. I'm still very hesitant to get bearish on traditional markets until like we see something very conclusive. It has to be like fully fucking confirmed. I'm talking about like a weekly reversal here, which we don't have just yet. SPY futures, same shit, closing a spinning top dildo it's closing a spinning top right there. But do we have anything that's any more damning? Because I remember this one was looking a little bit stronger in comparison to NASDAQ throughout this past week. And yeah, short term, I probably would be looking for another retest of like 3890-ish region, probably another bounce implied there as well. Same sort of formation going on right here, but this one not as obviously distribution at the top just yet, but the way to play it is more or less the same, and you see the same sort of relevant regions as NASDAQ. So NASDAQ's, what was it, was it 13.5? 13,550, yeah. 13,550 bearish confirmation would be akin to SPY's about 3890-ish region bearish confirmation, and that would imply a move back down to about 3840-ish region, maybe a little bit lower than that, in line with the 200 simple and 200 exponential average. Once again, on the next pass, I would be looking for another bounce off this level, however. So I really would hesitate to like get full on fucking balls to the walls, looking for a greater pullback until that condition is met. It hasn't been a very profitable endeavor shorting anything within the traditional market as far as major indices go for like the last, well, since about 2008, we could say. Anyways, gold closed the week on a sour note. Once again, gold looking like a little bit of, looking like setting up for continuation of the downside. Not good gold, bad gold, very bad gold. Very bad gold, but I just don't feel too confident on this one. You know, it's like I know that I should be bearish, especially on this rejection right here, but I still would have, I personally, I would have hesitated to take that trade, even though I don't trade this one to begin with. It's like it's not even relevant to talk about. Let's go check out some altcoins versus Bitcoin. I'm curious what they're doing. Let's look at the index for that, Mr. Ethereum, Bitcoin, of which would I still be looking for a nice upside move here? Yes, I would. I do think that this one is setting up for a little bit of a short-term reversal. You know, maybe it tags back down to the 200 simple first at 3.3 million, but overall, I do think that this one is a bit primed, is starting to get a little bit overdone to the downside here. Weekly is not giving me much to go off of. Technically speaking, I should be short-term, medium-term bullish off this, and I should be bearish on any sort of a closure below the 200 exponential average. That's the most obvious thing about this chart. Problem is, that's really fucking far away from price action right now, so it's not all that relevant for the immediate time frames. But yes, below 3.175, I would be looking at that as majorly bearish, looking for moves, probably maybe even a full retrace back down to like 2 million Satoshi levels. But for right now, I do give it the benefit of the doubt just because of the current market dynamics and the way that most things are probably going to follow in Bitcoin's footsteps, albeit maybe a little bit at a slower pace. Let's look at Ethereum versus US dollar, new all-time highs. We did hit our $2,000 target, but remember, $2,000 was not relevant for anything more than psychological resistance, which is no resistance at all in my experience. What I really be looking towards is a 3-spot 272 and the 3-spot 414 in these sort of expansion phases, of which we are seeing certainly right now, especially with HVP being all the way down and below fucking 5, while daily RSI is bullish AF, playing out some hidden bullish evidence right here. I'd be looking for this to take a stab towards the deeper edge of the bullish control zone, and momentum still pointed northwards as long as we're above 1890-ish region essentially. So with all of that in mind, 2200 to 2400 is really what I'm looking for on this one. Kind of similar to Bitcoin, towards 58,000 to 62,000, which might not even be bullish enough. Who the fuck knows at this point? We are in the twilight zone here. It's a guilty pleasure. Enjoy it and enjoy it. I mean, a lot of people joined this channel in 2017, 2018, or I guess 2018 because we were around 2017, and we survived the bear market together. It's quite nice actually. In fact, probably built up a lot of skills that are going to be relevant at some point, but not right now. And it's nice to see people be happy once again. It's probably the easiest way to get people happy. Just make them rich, I guess. works. At least if you don't have money having more money will not solve all your problems, but it'll solve your money problems. And I can tell you this: not having those problems is a lot better than having those problems, because I've been on fucking both sides of the goddamn spectrum, and I've told that story too many times before, but it wasn't so. When I really do think about it, and I do spend a lot of time thinking about this, it wasn't so long ago that I was completely broke. I had literally nothing. Like, not just literally nothing, but in debt, by quite a significant margin. So I do happen to know what that's like, and I can tell you, all things considered, everything else equal, you probably want to be on that. You probably don't want to be on that side of the equation. It's not fucking fun. Anyways, okay, all right, okay. So yeah, Ethereum's still bullish here. What about on the short-term time frames? Continuation. We're going to start to expand from here as well. All momentum also is bullish. This makes me think that we actually see another move to the upside over the weekend. My ideas about potentially playing out a little bit of a downside range to set up for a weekly continuation on Bitcoin might not be relevant for the short-term altcoins, especially. Ethereum's just looking like straight-up continuation. I'm curious what Link looks like. I mean, this one's always fucking bullish anyways, so... what do you know? Oh, weekly is bullish as fuck. Probably new all-time highs coming into next week as well. What about daily? Pretty damn good too. What about 4-hour? Less enticing, but 4-hour RSI showing the way. Hidden bullish evidence, 1, 2, 3, 4 stabs, looking good. Momentum north. Yeah, reaccumulation right here. A little bit of a flag out formation. What would your next target be? It'd be something like this. I haven't done a fucking flag in a long time. Very rarely do you even see flags, actually. Something like this, what you do. There we go. Let's see what that would be pointed up north towards. Yeah, $40, and I believe that was in line with another major fib. What do you know? The 3-spot 414. So long term, yeah, I'd still be looking north on this one. Looks good. It's Link, man. It just goes up. Number go up. Just kidding. All jokes aside, if you're new here, not everything always fucking goes up all the goddamn time. But I guess this would be the best time to be a moon boy, I suppose. Cardano turning the corner, as we spoke about a month ago now. Do feel quite good about that one. Someone got on my case the other day about it, saying, "Crown, I think you owe the Cardano car dealers a bit of an apology." It's like, well, actually, no. I think I've been doing a pretty damn good job of being incredibly bearish on this one ever since I started talking about it over here in April 2018. And started getting bullish on it right around here, actually, on this closure on new highs. So yeah, I didn't get the ultimate high, didn't get the ultimate low, but that's the way that I trade, and I would argue that that's, well, I'm quite happy with it. The perfect traders of crypto or Twitter, they might disagree, however. Fair enough, more power to them. Anyways, let's see. Is there anything else that we want to speak about here? Let's go check out Caretaker Ranges. I'm curious what he's looking at. Mr. Caretaker, what do you have for us? Okay, we got 4-hour right here. That is showing the $58,000 level to the upside. Yes, I do like that. Nice, good confluence. Agree with me, Caretaker. Just kidding. Validate my thoughts and opinions, Caretaker, please. It's like I'm a little bit too reliant on this nowadays. 5,000 to the downside, 59 to the upside. So hourly is actually still expanding here, which is rather interesting. What does the daily levels show? Daily level shows 62,000 about, 61.5, but that will expand on any sort of upside moves. To the downside, 46. So that's kind of in line with the $45,000 target for like long-term down. Again, not very likely here, but that would be the condition for that. Anyways, yeah, I think we've kind of got off of that what we want to get off that. It's further confirming our beliefs. Yeah, 4-hour momentum continues to rise. Strong rising trend. What about 12-hour? Oh, what do you know? Strong rising trend. And same sort of targets in mind as well, it looks like. So all good in the hood right there. Should we wrap this bitch up, or have I repeated myself enough as of now? Yeah, let's wrap this bitch up. How about that? Okay. Alrighty. Let me take a sip of this water. There we go. The most important things that happened on Bitcoin on Friday CME closure were once again closing above the topside Toronto band, continuation of this expansive phase. In this case, that would be trend continuation to the upside. And as we do see, momentum also is continuing to follow through. We do see that MACD histogram not only making a new high above the prior high, but also, well, I mean, naturally be increasing, of course. And that is likely going to apply new all-time highs coming in this next week. Of course, DMI ADX doing the same thing as well. Positive slopes on both the ADX and the DMI Plus, which is certainly very much dominant right now at about a 46 read. So long term, it is starting to get a little more relevant, but still within the context of historical rallies. Anyways, on top of that, we do see that the 2-day for spot price action following through as well, as it did close last night at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Close above the topside Toronto band, continuing this sort of trajectory, of which that would put in the buys for not just next week of price action making new all-time highs, but likely within this next 48 hours of making new all-time highs. In fact, we kind of already have, it looks like, well, yeah, we have about $300, but that's not necessarily what you're looking for. So what that does essentially put in the buys towards is that any sort of a pullback into lower term time frame supports likely does get reaccumulated and move onwards and upwards from there, meaning that this is not financial advice, I'm not financial advice, but if we do go down into lower term time frames, the areas that would be relevant for this would be the same sort of fibs that we were looking at on the way up. And I would actually be looking for a bit of a range to kind of occur between the 2.414 and the 2.272. That'd be about 54,000 and 55.8 respectively. So pretty much where Bitcoin is right now. And in that $54,000 pivot to the downside. Now, I'm actually a little bit less privy to this 414 right here, seeing as Bitcoin's kind of hovering around it, and all time frames that CME is closed on Friday are bullish, but of course they don't trade over the weekend. So a lot of the time what we do see over the weekend is a bit of a contrary move to the week's direction. So in this case, that would be a downside move to the next short-term time frame support, which would be that $54,000 level. So I sort of also denote conditions for failure here, which would be any sort of a 2-hour or 4-hour total closure below the $54,000 level. If that were to happen, I would look for extension, another $3,000 down to about 51,000 right here, 51,500. So about 2,500 or 3,000 bucks. That's where the medium term starts to change around, and I would be looking for, if that area were to break again on a 2-hour or 4-hour, for another move down to about 48,000 bucks. You know, can we use that as a continuation point for downside? I mean, technically no, because your last daily higher low is about 45,000 bucks. That's where the long term would change around and start to imply another 5,000, maybe even $6,000 move down to about 39,000 bucks. So with all of that in mind, am I looking for any of that to happen? No. What I think is most likely to happen is Bitcoin maybe short term plays move back down to 54,000 bucks, reaccumulated right there, and we still continue the march onwards and upwards based off of the biases that CME and higher term timeframes on spot price action set in as well, which would imply that the next major algo target is going to be the 2.618, right around about 58,000 bucks. That is relevant, of course, for short-term, medium-term timeframes. At the very least, short-term timeframe pullback around there. However, a lot of the time, what you see in these very volatile and extreme markets, which we are certainly in right now, you will get a spike up to the 3-spot extension here, which is about 62,000 bucks, and then play out a range between that and the 618. So with that in mind, I do think that I do think that we kind of solidify, that we do fall into the criteria of that sort of market narrative. So I would be cognizant of that. Certainly coming into next week. And then, of course, the most important thing potentially closing the soonest, which would be tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, is not just the daily, but also the 3-day 4-spot price action, which is once going to have a chance to close above the topside Toronto band. Do I look at this as more or less of a formality in comparison to what was more important that happened yesterday with both the 2-day 4-spot price action and the CME weekly closure? Yes, I do. But it would be good for further confirmation of upside continuation. Of course, keep in mind the topside Toronto band on the 3-day is about 54,000 bucks. So coming back down there would be a natural bounce point as well, especially coming into tonight's closure. So keep that in mind. Overall, pretty much all time frames are bullish. Short term, do we see a pullback down to 54,000 bucks? I think it's certainly not out of the question. I'd be looking at that as an opportunity, but not necessarily a certainty below there. That does start to imply another short term time frame move down to about 51,000 bucks, as we said. I won't go through that whole thing again, but generally speaking, I'm not looking for even 54,000 bucks to break, to be honest with you, in the short term. If that were to happen, though, do have a plan, of course. And at the same time, on the other side, I would be looking for essentially just continuation. I don't know about over the weekend, because a lot of the times we do see a bit of weekend fuckery as people get whipped out of their positions. It's just a little bit easier to kind of run the marks over the weekend, as there's just less players playing, so it's easier to kind of run the books. But overall, into next week, I very likely, I won't say certainly, but very extremely likely, I would be looking for new all-time highs with the $58,000 region, very likely, and maybe even $62,000 over time. So with that in mind, I would like to wish you the best and the happiest. I salute you all. Until next time.